It sure is a great time to be a college football fan, isn't it? For a lot of different reasons. It seems like every day that goes by now, though, Alabama is finding a new way to reach new lows when it comes to their level of poverty. We were looking at the Heisman odds the other day over on DraftKings for the upcoming season, the 2023 season. Now, the reason we went over there to look at them is because, I don't know if you remember, but I think it was back in January, not long after the national title game. Somebody put out a list of Heisman odds, and it had Brock Vandagriff with better Heisman odds than Carson Beck, which was a little strange to a lot of people because Carson Beck had been the number 2 at Georgia this past season behind Stetson Bennett, and Brock Vandagriff hardly played at all, so it was just kind of assumed that Carson Beck would be the number 1 next year and maybe Brock the number 2. So why would Brock Vandagriff have better Heisman odds than Carson Beck? Well, it turned out that was either a typo or a site that just didn't know what the hell they were talking about. Anywhere you go now, Carson Beck has the best Heisman odds of any Georgia quarterback or any Georgia player, for that matter. But that came up the other day, I think on the morning show, and so we went back and looked again at the Heisman odds to find out what was going on. And yeah, Carson Beck had the better odds of the two. And I'll put the odds. I'll put Carson Beck and Brock Vandagriff's odds up now so you can see them. Brock Vandagriff is still on there. But guess what else we noticed when we looked? Both Carson Beck and Brock Vandagriff have better odds of winning the Heisman than any player on Alabama's team. Even their quarterbacks. Georgia has 2 quarterbacks with better Heisman odds in 2023 than any quarterback at Alabama. Now, I want you to imagine the level of poverty this means that Alabama has sunk to. All they've been able to hang their hat on lately is that they've got good quarterbacks, right? Bryce Young, great quarterback. Couldn't win a national title, but he did win a Heisman. Tua never won a national title as a starting quarterback in college, but it was a hell of a quarterback, though, and Alabama fans just love bragging about that lately. Well, now, not only can they no longer win national titles, I mean, that's been proven, now they can't even really brag about quarterback play. Now, I'm not surprised by these odds at all. Jalen Mildew is absolutely horrible. This quarterback that was the number 2 for Alabama last year behind Bryce Young. Alabama fans know he's terrible. He doesn't even have the best Heisman odds of any Bama quarterback. Ty Simpson, who was the 3rd string quarterback last year behind Jalen Mildew, actually has better Heisman odds than Jalen Mildew. But Carson Beck and Brock Vandagriff, who, regardless of who you think is going to start, that's going to most likely be the number 1 and number 2 QB at Georgia in some particular order. They both have better Heisman odds than any player on Alabama's team. It's just crazy to me to see both how far Georgia has come in terms of quarterback play and quarterback expectations. I mean, if you'd have told me 2 or 3 years ago that Georgia was going to have a quarterback finish in the Heisman finalists and get an invite to New York City, I'd have told you were crazy. As good as Georgia's been, really for about 20 years, I mean, they've had a couple of bad years, but they've been basically a 10 or 11 plus win team for the better part of the last 20 years, finally cashing in with 2 national titles over the last 2 seasons. But rarely have they had excellent quarterback play, especially under Kirby Smart. Now you go back to Mark Richt, Aaron Murray, and Matthew Stafford. Before that, DJ Shockley and David Green. So it's not that Georgia's had terrible quarterbacks, but no quarterbacks really anywhere near the Heisman discussion. Well, that's starting to change. I feel bad for Alabama. They can't win their division. They can't win a national title. They've never gone 15-0. All they do now is brag about what Tua and Jalen Hurts are doing in the NFL, which is nothing. They haven't won anything in the NFL either. It's just sad to see. Bryce Young with a Heisman, that's great. Will Anderson, greatest college football player on earth. Woo, that's great. Can't win no national titles. And now you don't even have the quarterback debate to fall back on. Jalen Mildew and Bart Simpson, worse Heisman odds than both Georgia quarterbacks. Absolute poverty in T-Town, Tuscaloosa.